In a world where faith and reason often collide, few voices challenge our understanding of spirituality as profoundly as Jordan Peterson. What if everything you thought you knew about the Bible and Jesus was only a fragment of the truth? Peterson dives into the heart of Christianity, unearthing revelations that could shake the very foundation of your beliefs. Prepare to question, reconsider, and be captivated by the terrifying truths hidden in ancient scriptures. Jordan Peterson's intellectual journey. Jordan Peterson's studies in psychology have made him interested in how people act, the mind, and how stories shape the world. Peterson got his PhD in clinical psychology from McGill University in Montreal. He then taught at Harvard before becoming a professor at the University of Toronto. He is a unique voice in modern conversation because he writes about religion, society, and psychology. Carl Jung's idea of archetypes is at the heart of Peterson's psychology. Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and psychologist, thought everyone has basic images in their mind called archetypes.
The archetype is a very complicated idea and a very complicated phenomena, and you can think about it biologically and you can think about it socially.
These characters appear in religious stories, myths, and dreams in different places and times. Peterson liked Jung's ideas because they helped him understand how old stories can change people's minds. Peterson was interested in many things, such as Jungian archetypes and folklore. He thinks that myths are not just stories but also important psychological facts. They hold ancient knowledge and show you how to deal with the problems you face in life. Peterson looked into how these myths, especially those found in religious books like the Bible, could be seen as psychological truths that shed light on the human condition. Peterson's early schooling made him ready to study religious works. He easily used his psychological approach to myths and archetypes to look at the Bible, which he saw as a deep psychological story that shaped Western culture. Jordan Peterson found the Bible because he was interested in myths and psychology. He first read and talked about the Bible as a collection of stories about psychology and the meaning of life. Peterson thought that these works held universal truths that apply to all people. Peterson often talked about how psychological ideas could help us understand Bible stories in his talks. For example, he looked at the story of Adam and Eve not only as a story about how humans came to be, but also as a deep story about awareness, morality, and losing one's innocence. Peterson says that the story of the fall shows how self-awareness and the responsibility that comes with it are brought about. He says that this is a key theme to understanding the human condition. It became a trademark of Peterson's teaching and public speaking to look at religious stories as psychological truths. He made the case that these stories are important, not only for history, but also for everyday life. Peterson thinks that the Bible is a treasure trove of knowledge that can teach us how to deal with the chaos of life, understand pain, and find meaning in our struggles. When he first read religious books, they helped him see how moral and ethical the stories in the Bible were. Peterson often said that it was important to understand these stories in more than one way, including spiritually and personally. He thought that people could learn more about themselves and the human experience as a whole by reading these works in a deeper way. Carl Jung has had a huge impact on Jordan Peterson's understanding of the Bible. Jung's theory of archetypes gave Peterson a way to look at biblical stories as showing how general psychological patterns show up in real life. Jung said that these archetypes, like the hero, the wise old man, and the shadow, are part of the common unconscious and appear in religious stories, myths, and dreams. From this point of view, Peterson saw the Bible's figures and events as archetypal representations of basic human experiences. For instance, Peterson doesn't just see Christ as a religious figure, he sees him as the ultimate hero, representing the ideas of suffering, redemption, and standing up to evil. In Peterson's view, the story of Christ's life, death, and resurrection represents the inner journey everyone must take to face their own pain, moral flaws, and potential for change. Along with Jung, Friedrich Nietzsche's criticism of Christianity has had a big impact on Peterson's thinking. Nietzsche famously said, "God is dead." This quote shows how traditional religious views are losing popularity today. But Nietzsche also worried about the dangers of nihilism, which is the idea that life has no purpose in and of itself. He saw this as a result of people losing faith. Peterson doesn't always agree with Nietzsche's conclusions, but he does pay attention to what he says. He agrees that secularism's rise and established religious structures fall are problems, but Peterson says that religious stories shouldn't be thrown out. Instead, he says they should be revised and understood through the lens of psychology. He thinks that the Bible and its stories can still teach us how to deal with the moral and spiritual problems we face today. Nietzsche also impacted Peterson, who stressed the need for personal responsibility and the risks of moral relativism. Nietzsche's criticism of Christian morals is something that Peterson often brings up as a reason to rethink and reaffirm the values that guide people's actions. Peterson thinks that the Bible gives us a moral framework that, when understood mentally, can help people stay away from the bad things of nihilism and find meaning in a crazy world. The Bible as a psychological and mythological text. Jordan Peterson sees the Bible as more than just a religious book. He sees it as a collection of mythical stories that show us basic facts about people. These stories are deeply embedded in the human mind and show the struggles, hopes, and moral dilemmas that make up life. Peterson says that stories in the Bible are metaphors for how people think and feel. Cain and Abel is a story about sibling rivalry, anger, and the destructive power of feelings that are not controlled. Cain's anger and hatred show what can happen when you don't own up to your mistakes and how jealousy can affect your mind. Noah's Ark is a symbol of how strong people are in the face of chaos and tragedy. The flood is a metaphor for the problems and disasters that everyone faces, but Noah's wisdom, discipline, and morals help him get through them. Peterson thinks that these stories are archetypes that can help us understand what it means to be human and deal with the difficulties of life. These storylines are mentally important because they touch on basic human traits like the struggle between good and evil, the need to make sacrifices, and the search for meaning in a chaotic world. Carl Jung's idea of archetypes in the common unconscious is the basis for Peterson's Bible study. Classical images and actions are called archetypes. They are the building blocks of the human mind and affect how we think and act. Peterson says that the Bible has archetypal figures and ideas that show these basic psychological truths. Jesus Christ stands for the hero or savior. His story of sacrifice and redemption, from his birth and teachings to his death and resurrection, represents hope, renewal, and the victory of good over evil across all religions and countries. Another Bible figure is King Solomon, the wise king. Solomon asked God to give him knowledge, and his judgments stress the importance of learning from experience and being a moral leader. Leaders are motivated by this trait to value honesty, fairness, and knowledge. The Bible also talks about tricksters, like the snake in Eden and Jacob, who tricks Esau. Tricksters are known for being sneaky and dishonest and causing trouble in society, but they also help change things. Peterson thinks that these patterns are very important for understanding how people act and what the Bible says about right and wrong. Archetypes help Peterson make hard psychological facts easy to understand. By following these universal patterns, biblical figures and stories show how people can deal with moral and existential problems. Peterson says that the Bible is both a psychological and mythological work, as well as a very important book for Western culture. He thinks that morals and ethics in the Bible shaped Western societies, laws, and values. Peterson says that biblical morality, which is based on personal responsibility, the sanctity of life, and the intrinsic worth of each person, has affected Western morality. The Ten Commandments stress fairness, honesty, and respect. Western legal and moral systems are based on these ideas, which impact human rights and the rule of law. Peterson also thinks that the Bible's emphasis on free will and moral choice formed individualism and personal responsibility in the West. Morality and its effects are emphasized in stories like Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and others. Western law stresses the freedom and responsibility of each person, holding them responsible for their actions and the results of those actions. Western ideas about justice, government, and social order are based on biblical morality and social structures. Democracy, personal rights, and the rule of law are all based on biblical ideas. Peterson says that without the Bible, Western society would not have adequate moral guidance and security. In this way, the Bible has shaped Western culture and morality in ways that go beyond its religious meaning. It has shaped modern organizations and ideals. Peterson stresses how important it is to see the Bible as a source of deep cultural and psychological knowledge that has shaped history. The figure of Jesus Christ, symbolism and reality. When we talk about Jesus Christ, we're not just talking about a historical person. We're talking about one of the most important archetypes in human history. Jordan Peterson sees Jesus as the ideal archetype. He sees Jesus as the hero and the redeemer. It's not enough to just see Jesus as a religious figure. We need to see him as a figure that speaks to people deeply across countries and time. A theme that shows up in stories all over the world is the hero's journey. The hero is someone who stands up to chaos, goes through terrible hardships, and often gives up something very important, like their life, for the sake of the greater good. This is exactly how Jesus is. He taught and did miracles, and then he was crucified and rose from the dead. This is the classic hero's journey. That being said, Jesus is also the Redeemer, which means that he saves people by helping them through hard times. There is a huge amount of psychological and spiritual meaning in this. The story of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection is more than just events. It shows that by suffering and giving up something good, bigger things can be accomplished. It's the idea that to really live, you have to be ready to face the worst parts of life and find grace in them. Peterson sees Jesus' trip as more than just a religious story. He sees it as a picture of the problems we all have. Whether you believe in God or not, the symbols in Jesus' story speak to all of us. There are times when problems seem impossible to solve, when we have to give up something important, and when we hope that something good will come from our pain. Things get really interesting and a little scary from here on out. Peterson goes into an in-depth look at the idea that Jesus is both human and holy. People have argued about this idea for hundreds of years, but Peterson's view is new and psychological. Jesus is fully human and fully divine at the same time. That is what duality is all about. As a man, Jesus experiences pain, fear, doubt, and sorrow just like us. But as the divine, he stands for something much bigger, a link to the infinite and the meaning of life itself. What does this mean for us? That's right, it's both comfortable and scary. On the one hand, it's comforting to think that even God can go through the same problems we do. It helps us feel less alone in our pain and more understood. On the other hand, it makes things more dangerous. What does it say about the human state that Jesus, who is both human and God, can go through such terrible pain? It seems to say that pain is not only possible, but also a necessary part of life. It also means that how we react to pain is important on a cosmic level. Peterson often discusses how this duality makes us take charge of our lives. If Jesus, who is both human and divine, can deal with the worst things that life has to offer, then we can too. There's no getting around the fact that what we do and the decisions we make have big effects on the world. This realization is both freeing and scary because it means that we all have to carry the weight of life. He was put to death on the cross. It is one of the most powerful stories in the Bible. Peterson sees it as the ultimate story of loss and redemption, one that gets to the heart of what it means to be human. It's not just a guy dying on a cross, it's a picture of the sacrifices we're all supposed to make. People see Jesus' death as the most loving and selfless thing that could ever be done. He is ready to go through unbearable pain and suffering, not for himself but for the sake of others or humanity. This act of giving up something is what makes Jesus the Redeemer. The idea is that by going through his pain, we can be saved. But let's look at this in more detail. What does this story have to do with our everyday lives? On one level, it's about how unavoidable pain is. It gets to everyone. Everyone has a cross to carry, whether it's a personal battle, a tragedy, or just the difficulties of everyday life. The execution shows us that pain is a normal part of being human, but there's more to the story. It's not enough to just put up with pain, you have to change it. Christ's death on the cross shows us that we can achieve better things if we make sacrifices, even if that means giving up something important to us or facing our deepest fears. If we face our pain with courage and honesty, it can turn out to be good. Peterson says this a lot. This is a message that speaks to people outside of Christianity. Everybody agrees that going through pain can help us grow, and that facing our darker sides can help us find light. That's why the story of Jesus' death on the cross has been told for over 2,000 years. It speaks to something basic about being human. The terrifying truth about the Bible. One of the most upsetting things about the Bible that Jordan Peterson believes is true. Life is pain. From the very beginning, the Bible talks about pain, loss, and suffering. Peterson thinks that the Bible talks about pain as a part of being human. In the Bible, pain is unavoidable. The lesson is clear. Suffering is a part of life, whether Adam and Eve caused it by their sin or Job, who goes through unbearable pain even though he is good. Recognizing that people are hurting shouldn't make us feel hopeless. Instead, the Bible tells us how to deal with pain. Peterson says that one of the good things about the Bible is that it is honest about pain. It doesn't give you fake hope or easy answers. It shows a real world where pain and loss are unavoidable, but people have to get through them. The point of view is both somber and encouraging. It forces us to face hard truths and pushes us to find meaning and purpose in our pain. Being aware of pain can be upsetting because it breaks the illusion that life is easy and painless. Life is hard, as the Bible tells us, but the study also shows that having faith, being strong, and having a purpose can help us get through hard times. The Bible also discusses free will and the moral duties that come with it. Peterson thinks that the Bible discusses free will in two different ways. It shows how free we are as people to make choices. It does, however, stress the awful fact that these choices have moral weight. This can be seen in Adam and Eve. They can choose to follow God or not. People who are free must also take responsibility for their actions. They hurt themselves and everyone else when they ate the forbidden food. This story shows that the decisions we make have long-lasting effects. Peterson talks a lot about how people have a lot of duty because they have free will. We get to choose, but the effects are ours to live with. It's scary to realize that we are in charge of our own lives. Things don't always have to be put on luck or fate. We need to take responsibility for our deeds and the results they bring about. The Bible discusses this moral duty extensively. To make smart decisions, you need to know how each option weighs. The Bible tells us to be moral, make decisions based on our values, and own up to our mistakes. This is hard, and it can be overwhelming to realize how much our decisions affect other people and ourselves. Some of the scariest things in the Bible are about hell and God's judgment. The Bible says that people who don't follow God's lessons will suffer forever in hell. A lot of people don't like this thought. Peterson thinks that hell is both a real place and a mental place. Peterson thinks that hell can happen in both this life and the next. It stands for the pain we cause ourselves when we do bad things, give in to our worst urges, or let chaos take over our lives. So hell is something we can experience right now if we don't follow the rules. The Bible also talks a lot about God's justice. This idea says that each of us will be judged by a higher power for our actions. The idea behind this awful idea is that everything we do has results. Each choice will be looked at carefully. Peterson is driven by opinion. It helps us remember that our lives are important, the choices we make are important, and we are responsible for them. This might be scary, but it makes sense. Knowing that we are being watched and judged can push us to live up to the sentence we will face in heaven. In the end, the Bible tells us to deal with chaos in our lives and in the world. This might be the hardest fact to accept because it forces us to confront our inner selves and the chaos in the world. Peterson says that trouble is a part of life that we have to deal with. He says that the Bible can help lead this argument. It's about people who deal with their sins, fears, and worries. The Bible is full of stories about people who had to deal with chaos, like Moses with Pharaoh or Jesus with temptation in the desert. This call to deal with trouble is both personal and cultural. The Bible tells us to fight against evil and unfairness and make the world a better place for everyone. However, this is hard. You need guts, resolve, and a reason to do it. Peterson says that it is dangerous to ignore this call. Our problem gets worse when we don't deal with it. Unchecked chaos can kill people and destroy nations. In the Bible, sin, judgment, and redemption show what can happen when there is a lot of chaos. The impact of Peterson's teachings on modern Christianity. Jordan Peterson's teachings have sparked a renewed interest in biblical literacy, particularly among younger audiences who may not have previously engaged with religious texts. His lectures, which frame the Bible as a source of deep psychological and archetypal truths, have captivated religious and secular individuals. This fresh perspective has encouraged many to explore the Bible as a religious document and as a foundational text that offers insights into human nature, morality, and societal structures. However, Peterson's approach has not been without its controversies. He has faced criticism from both religious communities, who sometimes view his interpretations as overly secular or reductionist, and from secular audiences, who may see his reliance on the Bible as contradictory to his otherwise scientific and psychological framework. The challenge of interpreting the Bible through a psychological lens has led to debates about whether his teachings align with traditional Christian doctrines or represent a more symbolic and less literal understanding of the text. Despite these controversies, Peterson's influence on modern Christian thought is undeniable. His work has become a significant part of the contemporary world's conversation about faith, reason, and morality. By bringing psychological insights into discussions of biblical stories, Peterson has helped to reshape how some view the Bible, encouraging a more nuanced and multifaceted approach to understanding its teachings. His impact on Christian discourse continues to grow as his ideas resonate with those seeking a deeper connection between ancient wisdom and modern life. Jordan Peterson's insights into the Bible and Jesus are profound and unsettling. To explore this revelation further, click on the video popping up on your screen. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content.